Running vest is a crucial piece of gear for runners. It's your Swiss Army knife, it's your Mary Poppins bag, and the longer you run and the more remote you run, especially on trail, the more important it becomes. You want your vest to be an extension of yourself. You're not using the vest itself, but you're using what's going to be in your vest, and there's no better way to carry everything you need than a well-fitting running vest. So today, I'm going to cover the basics and advanced tips on running vest. Basic things like how to choose the right running vest for you, how to pack your running vest, what should you bring in your running vest, but also some more advanced tips and hacks that I've developed racing over 100-mile ultramarathon. So let's dive into everything you need to know about running vest for runners. Hey, Simon here. Welcome to my channel. I'm an ultra runner racing 100-mile ultramarathon on average every month, and I'm on my way to finishing 100-mile ultramarathon. On this channel, you'll find my adventure, but also importantly, a lot of tips video to help you have your own adventure, have fun out there. And today we're talking about running vest. I remember when I was a new runner looking at people with running vests and being all impressed, like, wow, they really know what they're doing. And the running vest is such a basic tool, such a crucial tool for runner that I felt it would be important to cover some of the basics, but also the advanced tips that you learn through experience, because a running vest is such an essential tool. But really what you want is to almost forget that you have a running vest. It's as if you were running without a running vest, but at the same time, whenever you need something, just like Mary Poppins, you know and you pick it up, but at the same time, you're not carrying useless crap and you don't even feel the weight. So as I said in the intro, we'll cover basic tips, advanced tips, hacks, and also I gather a list of very common questions that are asked about running vests. So I'm gonna rapid fire answer these questions towards the end. Why do you need a running vest? When do you need a running vest? And also, when don't you need a running vest? You need a running vest basically to just carry all your crap. Like that, it's that simple. But more specifically, you really want to carry two types of things. One are liquids, so everything that you're going to drink, water, electrolyte. The other thing is gear. And within gear, I include things like food. So anything that is solid, but yeah, it's food, which isn't really gear, but also jacket, headlamp, battery, your phone, your keys. And just based on these needs, you can see that you don't always have to have a headlamp. You don't always have to have a rain jacket or clothing for the night. That depends on the distance. So the longer the distance, the more helpful your running vest will be. And associated to that is if you would be in a race, it depends on how big the segments are. If you have segments that are 20 miles in the mountain, yeah, you definitely need a running vest, potentially even something bigger than that. But if you're running shorter distance and you have a lot of support and it's in town, maybe you don't need as much. And although a lot of people prefer running vest, it's good to mention that there are other ways to carry liquids. If the only thing you need is something to drink, you can have handheld bottle, you can have just traditional bottle, you can have a belt. And personally, my preference is if I don't need to have a vest, I would rather have a belt that is fitting well. It's lighter, it helps my body breathe a little bit and cool down. But that's just a matter of preference. If you prefer a vest, go for it. Which means that even if you're running a 5K, some people will say, oh, you don't need a running vest for that. Like, okay, like great. Sure, you don't need a running vest, but maybe it's your preference. Maybe you prefer to have liquids with you as opposed to relying on aid station. And maybe the running vest is what you find the most comfortable. Go for it. The only opposite that I would say is when you go on training run, it's good to use your vest even if you don't need it. Practice will really help. So the more you run with your vest, the more it becomes an extension of your body. You don't even notice that it's there anymore. So even if you go for just a 5K, it's a training run, I don't need anything, you can still load your vest as if you would be racing the race that you're planning. And maybe that means having your night gear, even though you're going in town for a 5K, have your gear, practice with it. What is the right running vest? Which one should I buy? Buy the one that fits you well. Buy the one that is not chafing, that doesn't feel like it's bouncing. The vest should be snug. It should be a good fit. It shouldn't be too tight and restricting your breathing, but it shouldn't hop up and down all the time or move too much when you're running. So when you're shopping for one, first is to know your body size, and they usually have a chart. And if possible, try the vest before buying it. It's not always possible online, unfortunately, but some companies have pretty good return policy. If you are medium and you buy a medium, then there are a strap and you can adjust it, and that will come with just trying a little bit, and maybe it needs to be a little tighter, maybe it needs to loosen up a little bit. And the reason I said that it's good to bring the gear that you're planning to use in a race is the amount of gear that you have will actually change the fit a little bit. If you have the wrong fit vest, it doesn't matter that it's the best vest in the world. It's just gonna be super annoying. You're gonna be chafing, you're gonna be bleeding, it's gonna be painful. And I mentioned the best vest, right? I mean, there's no such thing as the best vest. But if you're gonna be in running for a while, I think it's good to buy a good vest. And it may look expensive, but these vests usually last for a fairly long amount of time, especially if you take care of them properly, which we'll talk about later. In my mind, it's definitely worth the investment of having the right vest, the right fit. And popular brand that you should probably look up for. Myself, I used for the longest time a Salomon Advanced Skin 12. But I recently switched to Ultraspire Ziga 6. And ever since I switched, I really like this vest. I tried quite a few different vests. With the channel, I try different gear all the time. And the Ziga 6 for me was the great fit, the great amount of pockets and everything that I can fit everything I need. But they're both really good. The Salomon is a good vest. The Ultraspires are great vests, and they have a lot of different models, and that's where trying different models can be helpful. Another brand that I think is very solid is Nathan. The most common question that I saw when I look for a question is actually Salomon Advanced Skin 5 liters or 12 liters. But that's true for all of the models. And it's a great question. I think the summary is go for the 12 liters unless you really know what you're doing. The volume is talking more about your gear, what you can fit in your bag, and 5 liters is very small. It can do the job, right? But the reality is that unless you buy two vests, one is 5 liters and one is 12 liters, you can always use your 12 liters if it's empty. You'll have a little bit more fabric that is hanging out, but the bag is not heavy, so it won't change anything. Whereas if you have the 5 liters and you need to cram more stuff because you're going to run through the night and it's cold, you won't be able to do that. And I'd say the only real advantage of a 5 liter is that if you have a smaller bag, you're less likely to carry more useless things. Now that you have your vest, let's focus on fluids. The best way to carry fluids typically is to have 2 bottles of 500 ml. Usually they go in the front, there's different model in the back. It will be very often these soft flasks. One of the pro tip that I would say is that it's good to always have water and electrolyte. Myself, I always do the same. On the left side, it will be water. Right side will be Tailwind. And the reason for that, first, when you're running for a very long time, sometimes sugar can just become very gross. Your electrolyte just feels very gross. So drinking water will feel refreshing. If you're eating gel, it's easier to do it with water. And the last reason, if you take a tumble and you have some scratch and you need to clean your wounds, it's helpful to have water so you can at least rinse it off a little bit. Maybe you have a buff, clean it until you reach the next aid station. Some people will be using those big bladders, 2 liters, 3 liters, and it's not wrong to use them, but I would preface saying that you should still be using these bottles in the front. Some of the reason why bottles are preferred. First, you can have both Tailwind and water, which can be very practical. Another reason is that if one of them fail, you have a safety because you have the other bottle, which is not the case for a big bladder. In a race, it's also much easier to fill your bottle. You can just take them out, give them to a volunteer, or do it yourself. It's very quick. Whereas a bladder, you need to take it out. It takes much more time. Also, it's much easier to monitor how much you're drinking in these bottles because you can see it and you can see when you're almost out. Whereas for your bladder, you might be drinking, and then you're out of it and you don't realize. Or on the flip side, you barely drank and you don't really notice it. So for all of these reasons, bottles are usually preferred. But if you need a higher volume, then on top of the bottle, you add the bladder. All right, so the bladder is usually bigger volume. This one is 2 liter. And a tip when you fill it is you don't know what to do with this. Well, you can just put it in your mouth. It should be clean. Then fill it up to the line inside. If you do too much, it's going to be difficult to close and you'll make a mess. You can put less if you want though. Fold it. Close it. Now it's ready to go in your bag. However, if you leave it like that at this step, it's going to slush a lot. So what you need to do, bring it upside down. Make sure that the air is connecting directly to the tube and you're going to empty or purge the air. Once the air is gone, it won't bounce around as much, it won't sludge as much. So the trick is to remove all the air from anything that is soft flask or bladder. So we're gonna try and chew it with a lot of air this time on purpose. If there's a lot of air, this is super annoying on your back. So again, even if there's not a lot of liquid inside, you just need to remove all the air. So now it's gonna be comfortable. Bottles are super practical because it's easy. If you need to fill them at the aid station, you just take them out, open them, and fill them. It's much quicker. And now you might be tempted to remove the air so it doesn't slush. That's right. However, if you remove the air before putting it in, it's flaccid a little bit. And if it's flaccid, it's much harder to get in. So what you want to do is you want to keep it hard. And the best way to keep it hard is to blow it. Now it's easy to get in, and once it's inside, you purge the air.
So keep it hard to get it in.
It won't slush, whereas if you leave the air, it would be really annoying. Oops. So now you know how to use bottles and bladders, and you can go in the 3-4 liters volume. If you think you need more than that, that's a lot of water. And sometimes it's easier if you don't carry it, but you have ways to purify the water. If it's trail that you know there will be some rivers, you shouldn't drink directly from that. You can get very sick from that, and we're talking very, very sick. So you have to purify the water or filter the water. And there are some filters, I'll put what I use myself, that actually match with the bottle cap of a lot of different models that are common. So you can just have that with you, and if you need more water, you can very easily take some water from a stream, purify it. So your bottles and your bladder, you need to clean them. It's gonna be moldy and disgusting if you don't do anything about it, and then you'll need to change them very frequently. The first thing is that if it's only water, it's easier to clean, but as soon as you start adding sugar in there, so Tailwind or any of these endurance sports mix, then you need to be much more thorough when you're cleaning it. You cannot just leave it sitting in the car for a few days in your luggage. Immediately after your run, you should definitely rinse it off with water. As much as possible, you will need to be scrubbing that, and then you leave them hanging, drying. If it's just water, then just make sure that you dry them completely. And because of that, myself, I will never ever use endurance mix in my bladder because it's very tough to clean thoroughly. But if you do that, what you could do is you remove the hose. You can submerge it in a bucket of water with some soap. But ideally, you would want to have something that you can go inside and scrub it. So it's a lot of work. The simplest for me, if I use the bladder, is just going to be water. And then for my bottle, I will designate some bottle that will be specifically for water all the time. You can use a permanent marker and mark something on it. This is a bottle for water. This is a bottle for endurance mix. And you know which one you need to clean more thoroughly. To make sure you clean thoroughly also, it's not just the bottle itself, but the cap, and especially if there's a straw, you can undo them and then scrub them with a toothbrush or something like that that you use. Let's start with the food. Know how many miles you're gonna do, and always carry a little bit more food than you think you would need, because you might make a wrong turn, and it's better to have 1 or 2 extra gel that you're carrying than just being really hungry, especially in a race when you're falling behind in calories. And have a place where you put that. The things that you want to have very accessible are things that you keep taking all the time. So what I do myself is that on the right side at the bottom, there's always a pocket there. That's where I will have all of my food. And on the left side, that's where I will put all of my trash. It would be tempting to have food everywhere, but you need place for trash. And if you mix them up, it will be easy when you take a gel out that some trash will come out. And we gotta be careful about the trails to maintain them properly. So have a space for your trash. And beyond the fueling itself, there's a lot of gear that you will need. I have a video about what you should bring. But essentially, think about the race condition. Is it gonna be cold? Is it gonna be rainy, windy? Have extra layers. Usually these more bulky items that you will not be using in, out, in, out, in, out all the time, you put them in your back. if there's a risk of rain, most of these bags, maybe they're water resistant, maybe, but what can be very practical is you take a trash bag, a plastic bag, and you will put your things that you want to be dry inside of that. You lock it and then you put it in your bag. Same thing with anything that is electronic, or if you have something like salt pills that shouldn't be humid, you can also use Ziploc. It's very practical. You put all of your little things there. And so to make sure that you don't forget anything, it's good to have a list and your go-to list. I go through this process in the video. And the things that will go in the front as opposed to the back will be the things that you will use a lot. So lube you might be using a lot. Pills you might need very quickly. Your headlamp, depending what time you're running, you can put it in the front. Some people will put it in their main pocket because you only get it once when it starts being dark. But one of the reasons I like having it outside is that it's very easy by accident to turn on the headlamp and then it's in your back all day and then you don't have batteries anymore. So I put it in the front. If it's turned on, someone will let me know or I will notice myself. But backup battery, for example, I will put them in the back, in a Ziploc bag, pretty much at the bottom of it. What will be at the top typically will be the rain jacket, so that if it starts raining, I can just remove my bag, pull it out, take it. Pro tip, small tip, it can be very good to have a very large rain jacket so that it can go over your running vest. Personally, I don't do that because I want to have access to everything, but then I assume that anything I'm carrying can be wet if it's not protected by an extra layer. Finally, if you're using poles, on these running vests, you have ways to attach them. Usually there's some elastic or something that you can tie them. The thing is that it's a little bit cumbersome, it takes a little bit of time, and the quiver is an addition that you can use on top of your running vest for most models. Originally, I thought it was more of a gimmick, but it's actually quite practical. You can really access your pole very easily, and what that leads to is that I tend to use more my poles thanks to the quiver. So because of that, I think the quiver is a great addition. And the last topic before we dive into the frequently asked question is about how to maintain your running vest. How can you make sure that it lives longer? And the first thing is that you should wash your running vest every now and then. The reason is that we sweat, it's salty, and salty water, especially for zipper, it will lead to a lot of corrosion. And I have some vests that the zipper is simply not working anymore. And the way to wash it, I'm sure they have instruction and maybe they say you're supposed to hand wash it. If that's the case, read the label and do as they say. But myself, I've just put it in the laundry with cold water, like a gentle cycle. That was fine. I don't think that damaged it. Of course, I don't put it in the dryer, then I hang it to dry. The other thing that can happen very frequently is some of the fabric, especially if it's kind of elastic, can rip apart. And it's just to be careful about not going too much in the bushes with it. And if you see a snag, try to fix it as quickly as possible, because otherwise, because of the stretch, it's just going to expand. All right, and now let's go with the most frequently asked question. I sourced it on different places, so let's go for it. So number one question is, what size of running vest do I need? You need a 12 liter. All right, should I use bottles or bladder in my running vest? You should definitely use the bottle. If you need more volume, you can add the bladder, but never use the bladder by itself. How much water should I carry in my vest? Well, typically you will only be able to do 2 times 500, or you might add, like I said, maybe a 2 liters. The Zigo 6 from Ultraspire actually carries bottles that are 800 ml, and personally that makes a huge difference. A 1.6 is actually pretty large volume that can carry you pretty far. How do I pack my running vest efficiently? The way to pack it efficiently first is to have a system. Always have the same gear in the same spot. Everything that you need access very quickly will be in the front, so your fluid, but also your fueling, your trash will be there. If you have your phone, it's good to have it in the front. Whereas things that you don't need as frequently will go in your back. I usually put my big puffy at the bottom of it, that's when it's really cold, and at the top will be my rain jacket. Which running vest is the best for ultras? Well, the best running vest, there's no best running vest. The best running vest is the one that fits for you. The brands that I really like are Salomon, Ultraspire, and Nathan. Personally, I've switched to the Ultraspire Zigo 6 and I love it. It's great. I'm not changing anytime soon. How do I prevent chafing from my vest? Finding the right fit, making sure that it's not bouncing all the time. So sometimes it's about tightening it a little bit more will prevent a lot of chafing. Then sometimes it's also having the right t-shirt. It's a combination usually of friction with your shirt and your vest that will create the issue. So you can try to switch to something else. Cotton is something that you should avoid. You should have some sportswear. It usually reduces the amount of friction and the amount of chafing. You can add some lube and you can also pre-tape, but ideally you shouldn't need to pre-tape or lube all the time. How do I clean my running vest? You just go back 30 seconds in my video. What size of vest do I need for a 50K, 100K, 100 mile? It's 12 liters. Doesn't matter the distance. What really matters is the distance between the aid station and how cold or how much gear you need. How much gear can a running vest hold? Well, if it's a 12 liter, you can carry 12 liter. But more concretely, a 12 liter, typically you can have a puffy jacket with a hat and glove, long sleeves, a rain jacket, and then extra gear that are a little bit smaller, like headlamp, extra headlamp, batteries, phone, lube, food, and a fair amount of liquid. If you would be using a bladder, a 2 liters, 3 liters bladder, you will need to reduce a little bit on what I just described though. Can I use a running vest for hiking or biking? Yes, I didn't know that was a question. No problem. However, I would say that for biking, there's better solution than a running vest. And for hiking, very often you might want to carry a little bit more gear. So sometimes a backpack can be more practical. The difference with the running vest is that it's very snug. It's really kind of tied to your body, and it's important when you're running. But when you're hiking, it's not as important, and a backpack will be just fine because you're not bouncing just as much. And that's it, folks. These are my tips for running vest. As I said, running vests are super important. Practice with it, find the right one for you, and get your system on where is everything. You want to have the gear that you need when you need it, especially when you're high in the mountain. As always, if you appreciate this video, please leave a thumbs up, share with your friends, and see you next time.